The station hung like a jewel above the dying star, its metallic skin catching the last sputtering rays that bled from the swollen giant. Within its corridors moved countless species, each representing empires that spanned sectors of the galaxy, each confident in their place atop the endless hierarchy of the stars. Among them, humanity was still a whisper, a species of latecomers whose ships were young, whose colonies barely clung to life beyond their cradle world, whose reputation was that of a reckless child stumbling into a realm far older and sharper than themselves. Captain Mara Vey knew this perception all too well. She had heard the muttered phrases in trade halls and council chambers. Fragile, volatile, impulsive. The words bounced off her with practiced indifference, but in the silence of her quarters, when the weight of command pressed heavier than her uniform, they struck their mark. She was no fool. Humans had clawed into the interstellar community with haste, and haste bred mistakes. Yet she also knew that mistakes were only another word for lessons, and humans had always learned quickly. The council chamber was a cavernous space, designed by species who grew taller and broader than any human frame. Its ceiling arched like the ribs of a leviathan, luminous veins of energy pulsing faintly along the supports. Mara entered with deliberate steps, every motion controlled, aware of how the alien delegates tracked her with their many eyes. Her escort of aides melted into the shadows, leaving her to stand before the representatives of powers that could, with little effort, erase Earth from the stars. The first to address her was an Etherean, its translucent body refracting the chamber's light into shifting colors. Its voice was layered, like multiple instruments playing in dissonant harmony. Humanity comes again to speak, as though its words bear weight, it said. Your species seeks influence when it has not yet proven survival. Mara met its gaze, or what passed for one. Survival is not proven by age alone, she replied evenly. It is proven by resilience. Humanity has faced extinction more times than I care to count, and each time we endured. The chamber stirred. Some muttered disapproval. Others tilted their heads in consideration. A lesser species might have been cowed, but Mara had no intention of bowing to expectation. She had not come merely to defend her species' right to exist. She had come because whispers spoke of something far beyond politics. A presence gnawing at the fringes of known space, a shadow that even these ancient empires hesitated to name. Her thoughts drifted briefly to Lieutenant Daniel Kale, waiting aboard the ardent Voyager. Where she was steel and composure, he was restless fire. He embodied every stereotype the aliens pinned upon humanity, reckless, daring, prone to laughter in the face of danger. And yet, she trusted him with her life, for his recklessness was tempered by ingenuity. Where others saw recklessness, Mara saw courage sharpen into instinct. The debate dragged on, alien voices weaving accusations and cautions. Some argued that the rumors of incursions were exaggerations, while others insisted the threat was too dire to risk human involvement. It was always the same, humans too young, too weak, too untested. Mara's patience thinned, but she held her silence until the council chair, a being of obsidian skin and molten eyes, turned its focus on her. Captain Vey, you asked for inclusion in this inquiry into the outer dark. Do you understand what you risk? Your species is unready. Unready? Mara's voice cut through the chamber like tempered glass. If the enemy waits until we are ready, then it is no enemy at all. It will not. It will strike as all threats do, without mercy, without consideration for who among us is seasoned or fledgling. Humanity does not fear the test. We demand it. Gasps and murmurs rippled outward. The Etherean shifted color, disapproving, but others quieter, leaned forward with interest. They had seen their own civilization stagnate over centuries of cautious politics. Humanity's audacity was both dangerous and intoxicating. As the council dissolved into arguments, a signal flared across Mara's wrist console. A secure transmission from the ardent Voyager. She excused herself with a curt bow and strode into the corridor, pulse quickening. Kale's face flickered to life, his usual grin absent. Captain, we've picked up something at the edge of the system. Not debris, not a ship we recognize. It's watching us. Her heart stilled, then steadied into iron rhythm. This was no rumor. The shadow had arrived sooner than anyone expected, and humanity with all its fragility and fire, now stood at the threshold of proving itself not in words, but in action. Mara glanced back at the chamber doors, behind which voices still argued over humanity's worth. Let them argue. The galaxy could debate humanity's right to exist for another 1,000 years, but the truth would be written not in speeches, but in the choices made here and now. Hold your position, she told Kale. Do not engage until I arrive. He arched a brow. You think the council will back us? I don't care if they do, she answered. We'll face whatever's out there, alone if we must. For the first time in the evening, a smile ghosted across her lips, not of arrogance, but of grim resolve. The galaxy had underestimated humanity since their first starship broke the veil of light. Now, in the shadows of the dying star, it would learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology nor its history, but its refusal to yield when every survival instinct screamed to surrender. The transmission ended, leaving Mara staring at the void beyond the viewport. The enemy was out there, patient and calculating, but so was she, and she intended to meet it head-on. The chamber behind her still buzzed with indecision, but in the silence of her own resolve, the course was already clear. This clocks in at just under 1,000 words and gives. Main characters: Captain Marave, composed leader. Lieutenant Kale, reckless but courageous. Setting and atmosphere: Galactic Council, alien disdain for humans. Central conflict: humanity is underestimated, but a real threat emerges. Ending beat: a decisive turn that hooks into Section 2. Do you want me to tighten this further into a leaner, sharper 800 to 850 word version for maximum pacing, or keep this 1,000 word density for richness? The ardent Voyager broke free from the station's gravity well, its hull glinting like a blade under the cold starlight. Captain Marave stood at the forward viewport, hands clasped behind her back, watching the faint shimmer where the unknown object lurked beyond sensor range. The Council had not sanctioned her mission, but she had wasted no breath seeking their approval. Action was required, and she would not let humanity's chance at proving itself slip into paralysis. Lieutenant Daniel Kale manned the tactical station, eyes flicking across shifting data streams. His expression carried the same restless energy as always, but his movements were sharp, efficient. Still no classification, he said. Whatever it is, it knows how to hide. Our probes return static, but the distortion pattern is deliberate. Mara nodded, her mind working through the possibilities. A cloaked ship, a probe, or something far older. Each option carried risk, yet hesitation would only invite greater danger. Bring us closer, 1/4 impulse. Keep the profile low, as if we're surveying debris. If it wants to watch, let it believe we haven't seen it. The crew executed the order without question, their loyalty to her command forged in battles unrecorded by the Council's historians. Humanity's presence among the stars was brief, but each voyage demanded adaptability and willpower. The alien powers dismissed those qualities as crude improvisation, but Mara knew survival was never elegant. It was stubborn, raw, unyielding. The silence stretched until the distortion flared, blooming into the unmistakable outline of a vessel unlike any on record. Its form was jagged, as though grown rather than built, dark plates interlocking like the shell of some monstrous insect. The moment it revealed itself, the ship surged forward with predatory speed. Contact! Kale barked. It's moving on us. Mara's voice cut through the rising tension. Evasive pattern Delta-4. Ready defensive screens. The Voyager twisted on its axis, thruster spitting blue flame as the alien craft fired a beam of searing light. The shot grazed the shields, leaving a ripple of distortion across the view screen. Kale's hands danced across the console. Their power output dwarfs ours. If they land a direct hit, shields won't hold. Then they won't land one, Mara replied. Her gaze locked on the Predator's ship, her jaw set. Return fire. Concentrated volleys on the forward appendages. If it's alive, it has weak points. The Voyager spat lances of plasma. Against the alien hull, the impact seemed insignificant, sparks against a storm. Yet one shot struck a joint between plating, and the creature ship flinched, its trajectory faltering. Kale grinned fiercely. Got its attention. The alien vessel responded with a howl that vibrated through the comms channel. Not a signal, but a sound. Raw, guttural, almost animal. It was no machine in the traditional sense. It was alive, fused with weaponry in ways neither natural nor mechanical alone could explain. The realization chilled Mara, but she clamped down on the feeling. Later there would be time for horror. Now, only resolve mattered. Record everything, she ordered. This is the evidence the Council cannot ignore. The battle dragged into a deadly dance. The Voyager darted and weaved, her smaller frame a rare advantage against the hulking predator. Kale fired in controlled bursts, exploiting the ship's twitching responses, while Mara directed maneuvers that strained the crew to their limits. Every hit taken rattled bones and confidence alike, but the human vessel endured through sheer refusal to fall. At last, after a brutal exchange, the predator disengaged. Its body shuddered with sparks and ichor-like fluid spilling into the void. With one last screeching transmission, it warped into hyperspace, leaving behind silence and wreckage. The bridge crew sagged in relief, though none dared cheer. They had survived, but survival was not victory. Mara remained rigid, staring into the emptiness the enemy had fled into. It wasn't defeated, she said softly. It withdrew. That means it has no fear of us, only caution. It will return stronger. Kale leaned back, sweat darkening his collar, but his grin resurfaced. We bloodied it, Captain. That's more than any of these other powers can claim. The Council won't be able to dismiss us now, or they'll accuse us of provoking it, Mara countered. Yet even as she spoke, she knew Kale was right in part. Humanity had stood where the others refused, and in that act alone they had shifted perception. Later, as reports streamed from the damaged systems, a new transmission arrived, not from the enemy, but from one of the Allied fleets stationed nearby. Aurelian commander, long disdainful of humans, appeared on the display. Its voice was a rasp of grinding stone. We monitored your engagement. Reckless, inefficient, yet defective. Share your data. Perhaps humanity's defiance is not without merit. Mara exchanged a glance with Kale. The tide had begun to turn. Their defiance, born not of arrogance but necessity, had carved an opening in the rigid hierarchy of the stars. The other species would still doubt, still question, but they could no longer ignore. As the Voyager limped back toward safe orbit, Mara allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer in debate. It was in motion, forged by fire and resistance. But the image of that predator's ship lingered in her mind, an omen of a storm to come. One skirmish was only the opening act. She rested a hand against the viewport glass, her reflection stark against the void. This is only the beginning, she whispered. Words meant as much for herself as for the stars. Kale, overhearing, chuckled softly. Then let's make sure we write a beginning worth remembering. The hum of the engines filled the silence that followed, steady and defiant. Beyond the dying star, in the cold reaches of uncharted space, the enemy gathered its strength. But so did humanity, piece by piece, through grit and unyielding will. The war had not yet begun. Already its shape was clear. Mara straightened, the weight of command settling on her shoulders once more. The galaxy would soon face a reckoning. When it came, humanity would not cower in council halls or hide behind excuses. They would stand, as they always had, fragile yet unbroken, underestimated yet unyielding. The stars ahead seemed darker, but to Mara they blazed with opportunity. This section, too, runs just under 1,000 words, with main characters deepened, Mara's leadership under fire, Kale's daring instincts, central conflict sharpened, humanity versus a superior alien predator, narrative arc, first battle survival recognition from other species, looming threat, ending beat, clear momentum into Section 3. Do you want Section 3 to escalate into a full-scale galactic battle climax, or a more intimate, character-driven confrontation that still shows humanity's defining edge? The galaxy trembled with whispers of war, reports of predator vessels, twisted amalgams of flesh and metal, spread across Allied space like contagion. Entire outposts had vanished into silence, their transmissions severed mid-sentence. The Council, once dismissive of human urgency, now stood divided between paralysis and retreat. Amid the chaos, the ardent Voyager was summoned not as a guest, but as a spearhead. Humanity had become impossible to ignore. Captain Marave strode the command deck, every motion purposeful, her eyes sharper than steel. The crew wore the exhaustion of their survival like scars, yet beneath the fatigue burned something brighter. Conviction. Lieutenant Kale leaned over his console, the restless fire in him tempered by hard-won restraint. He had seen the Predator up close, felt its hunger in the marrow of his bones, and still he grinned with the ferocity of someone who had no intention of surrendering. The fleet gathered near the shattered husk of a binary star system, dozens of ships arrayed in fragile unity. Alien commanders traded clipped words, their distress palpable even through encrypted channels. Some doubted the plan. Others doubted humanity's right to lead it. Mara listened without interruption until the noise became unbearable. Then she spoke, her voice cutting through the static like a blade. "You called us reckless children," she said. "You called us fragile, impulsive, unready, but we are here when you are not. We have faced the enemy and lived to warn you. If that makes us reckless, so be it. Better reckless than paralyzed." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then the Rillian commander, stone-skinned and severe, inclined its head ever so slightly. "Then let the children lead." The enemy arrived not with fanfare, but with inevitability. Space rippled and tore as Predator vessels emerged, their forms grotesque and shifting, as if the void itself rejected them. The Allied fleet wavered, hesitation clawing at discipline, until the Voyager surged forward, engines blazing. Mara's voice rang clear over the comms. "Follow us or die alone." The battle unfolded like a storm breaking open the night. Predator beams sliced through shielding, carving molten scars into Allied hulls. The air filled with frantic reports, screams, and the thrum of failing systems. Yet where precision faltered, human improvisation thrived. Kale directed the Voyager through maneuvers no tactical doctrine would condone, dives through debris fields, skimming close enough to the enemy hulls that sparks crackled across their shields. Plasma bursts raked across alien joints, striking not with superior firepower but with audacity. The Allied ships, reluctant at first, began to mimic. Species bound by centuries of rigid doctrine loosened their grip on procedure, following the unpredictable rhythm humanity wove. Slowly, improbably, the tide shifted. Predator vessels faltered, their screeches echoing across comms as more of them bled into retreat. Yet the largest remained. A Leviathan, its body bristling with spines that glowed like suns, advanced upon the fleet. Its presence dwarfed them all, its shadow blotting stars from view. Even Kale's grin faltered at the sight. "That's not a ship," he murmured. "That's a world killer." Mara's chest tightened, but her voice did not waver. "Then we kill it before it kills us." The Leviathan released a beam that split an Allied dreadnought in two, scattering its fragments like sparks on a gale. Fear rippled to the fleet, retreat tempting even the boldest. Mara felt it, the instinct to flee, but she crushed it beneath willpower. Humanity had survived plagues, wars, and the cruelty of their own kind. They had endured because when cornered, they did not yield. "Kale," she said quietly, "can we breach it?" His fingers flew across the controls, calculations spilling faster than words. At last he looked up, fire in his eyes. "There's a weakness at the spinal ridge. But to hit it, we'd have to fly straight through its firing arc. It's suicide." Mara's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then it's our kind of plan." The Voyager dove, engines roaring, weaving through the chaos as the Leviathan spines pulsed with lethal light. Allied commanders cried warnings, but Mara ignored them. Every second brought her ship closer to the heart of the monster, every second another chance for annihilation. Kale's hands moved with impossible speed, guiding weapons fire into the beast's wounds. At the final moment, when the Leviathan's maw opened to unleash devastation, Mara gave the only order that mattered. All power to the forward batteries. The ship shuddered as energy surged. Every reserve poured into one strike. Plasma lanced outward, piercing the ridge where armor gave way to living tissue. For a breathless instant, nothing happened. Then the Leviathan convulsed, its spines collapsing inward, its scream vibrating through every hull and system. With a blinding flare, it imploded, vanishing into silence. The battlefield stilled. What remained of the Predator fleet fled into the dark, abandoning their dead. The Allied commanders, stunned, spoke in hushed tones. They had survived, not because of superior firepower, but because humanity had dared the impossible. On the Voyager's bridge, relief washed over the crew like a tide. Cale exhaled a laugh, ragged and disbelieving. "Remind me never to doubt your definition of a good plan, Captain." Mara allowed herself one deep breath, then straightened. Victory tasted bittersweet. The cost was written in the debris fields, in the names of ships that would never return. Yet amidst the loss was something undeniable. Humanity had proven itself not merely as survivors, but as leaders. A transmission cut across the silence. The Rillian commander's voice steady. "Today, the galaxy saw what humans are. Reckless, fragile, unyielding. Perhaps it is what we need." Mara met Cale's gaze. His grin had softened, but the fire behind it had not dimmed. She turned back to the stars, her reflection cast across the void. The war was far from over. The Predators would return, stronger and more determined. But humanity had carved its place in the story of the galaxy, not as an afterthought, but as a force none could ignore. For the first time since leaving Earth, Mara allowed herself to believe. Not in survival. That was never in doubt, but in victory. The stars ahead no longer seemed distant or indifferent. They seemed alive, waiting, watching. And humanity, fragile and furious, was ready to meet them. This Section 3 sits just under 1,000 words, giving you the climax. Humanity leads a desperate battle. The characters tested. Mara's unyielding resolve, Cale's daring courage. The central conflict resolved. Humanity earns respect through defiance, not dominance. The ending beat. Victory with looming threat, leaving the door open for continuation. Would you like me to stitch sections 1 to 3 into a single seamless draft, 3,000 words, so it reads like a polished novella chapter? The wreckage of the Leviathan still drifted in the silence of space, glowing embers fading into nothingness. The Allied fleet, battered but alive, lingered in uneasy formation, their channels thick with static-filled murmurs of disbelief. Humanity's audacity had carved a wound into Predators, but Marvey knew it was no victory worth celebrating. It was only a pause, the brief inhalation before the galaxy learned the full depth of what hunted them. On the bridge of the ardent Voyager, the air carried the sharp tang of burnt circuitry. Crew members moved with measured urgency, patching ruptured conduits and recalibrating damaged systems. Lieutenant Cale stood at her side, his uniform scorched, hair damp with sweat, yet his grin clung stubbornly to his face. It was not the grin of arrogance this time, but of defiance, a grin that said they had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. "We showed them," Cale said, voice hoarse but steady. "The Council, the Allies, even the monsters, they know humanity isn't backing down." Mara's gaze remained fixed on the viewport, where fragments of Predator flesh still twisted in unnatural motions, refusing to obey the laws of death. "We showed them," she agreed softly, "but we also showed ourselves, and now they'll come for us first." The thought carried no bitterness, only clarity. Humanity's refusal to yield had drawn a line, one that the Predators could not ignore. Already, transmissions pour in from Allied ships requesting tactical debriefs, battle logs, and human strategy models. To Mara, it was proof of respect. To Cale, it was proof they had shifted the balance. But respect was as fragile as the ship still venting oxygen into the void. Hours later, in the council chamber once more, Mara faced the same towering figures who had mocked humanity's fragility. The chamber felt different now, less suffocating, though the disdain in their eyes lingered. The obsidian-skinned chair of the council spoke, voice a low rumble. "You acted without sanction. You risked annihilation. And yet your actions saved countless lives. Humanity has complicated the order of things." Mara did not flinch. The order of things was already broken. The Predators made certain of that. "We did not seek war, but we will not run from it. Neither should you." The Etherean's translucent form flared with shifting colors. "You speak of defiance as though it were virtue, But defiance attracts destruction. Defiance resists destruction, Mara countered. It is not arrogance that drives us, but necessity. We are not stronger than these creatures, nor wiser nor older. What we are is unwilling to surrender. That is humanity's gift, and if the galaxy cannot accept it, then we will stand alone. The chamber erupted into divided voices, some condemning, some praising, most uncertain. Mara stood in silence, her presence a challenge, until the Aurelian commanders rasped silence the room. They led when we faltered. They bled when we hesitated. If the predators are to be stopped, humanity must be part of the blade that strikes them. The council, fractured but shaken into concession, agreed to an unprecedented decision. Humanity would be granted a command seat in the coalition fleet, not honorary, not symbolic, but real authority, with all the peril and responsibility it carried. The announcement spread like wildfire across the station, stirring whispers of outrage and admiration alike. Kale found Mara afterward in the quiet of a docking bay, where the Voyager awaited further repairs. He leaned against a support beam, arms crossed, his grin softened by something more solemn. So that's it. We've gone from outcast to leaders in a single battle. You'd think I'd be celebrating. You're not, Mara asked, her voice tired but edged with curiosity. He shook his head. I've seen enough of those things to know this isn't the end. They're not going to lick their wounds and vanish. They'll come harder, smarter, and now with the first target they'll aim to break. Mara studied him for a long moment. He was right, but his words carried no despair, only truth. Then we make sure we're unbreakable, she said. We may fall, Kale, but if we do, it won't be quietly. We'll make sure the galaxy remembers what it means to stand. A silence lingered between them, filled with the weight of futures neither could predict. Beyond the docking bay's shielded barrier stretched a vast canvas of stars, cold and endless. Yet to Mara, they no longer seemed indifferent. They seemed watchful, waiting to see if humanity's spark would burn out or ignite something greater. As the Voyager prepared for its next mission, orders arrived from the Council. Recon fleets would scatter into the dark, searching for predator strongholds. Humanity's seat at the table meant more than recognition. It meant burden, responsibility for decisions that could doom entire worlds. Mara felt the weight settle on her shoulders, heavier than any battle. But when Kale clasped her arm, steady and certain, the weight became bearable. One step at a time, he said. That's how we've always done it. One impossible step after another. She allowed herself the faintest smile, and each step louder than the last. The predator threat had not ended. It had only been named, revealed in its hunger. Yet the galaxy was no longer a chorus of doubt and dismissal. It was a choir of voices, fractured but rising, drawn by the rhythm humanity had struck. Defiance had become a banner, and though the banner was fragile, it fluttered where none other dared raise it. The stars beyond the station flickered with distant storms, silent heralds of battles to come. Mara straightened her posture, Kale at her side, both of them marked by survival and sharpened by the weight of expectation. The next chapter of their fight was unwritten, but she knew its first word, resistance, and in that word, humanity had already claimed its place. This section 4 is just under 1,000 words and expands the main characters, Mara and Kale, by showing their evolution from survivors to reluctant leaders. Centers on the conflict of recognition versus burden, as humanity's defiance earns them power but paints a target on their back. Ends with a satisfying but open conclusion, setting the stage for continuation. Do you want to combine all 4 sections into a continuous novella-style manuscript for 1,000 words, so it flows seamlessly without visible breaks?